It started with perfume. Not the scent she always wore, the warm vanilla that used to linger on our bed sheets, or the clean floral one she'd spritz on before date nights. No, this was something new, sharper, seductive. It clung to her skin like a secret. I noticed it one night when she came home late from a girl's dinner. She kissed me, cold lips, distracted eyes, and headed straight to the shower. I stood in the hallway like a fool, holding on to the ghost of a woman I used to know. Her name is Brianna, and we were married for 7 years when things started to shift. Not all at once, but like a slow leak in a boat. You don't realize you're sinking until your feet are wet. Brianna had always been fiercely independent. That was part of what drew me in. She had a laugh that could light up a room and a mind that ran circles around mine in debates. But that independence slowly hardened into distance. Our conversations became surface level. Her touches became routine. Her phone, once left out on kitchen counters and coffee tables, was now always clutched close, screen turned down, password changed. The first real gut punch came on a Wednesday night. We were eating dinner, the TV on low in the background, when she looked up from her plate and said, "I've been thinking about something." She wasn't looking at me. She was staring into the bowl of salmon and quinoa like it held the answer to the meaning of life. "What is it?" I asked. She set her fork down carefully. That alone told me it was serious. Brianna never left a meal unfinished. "I want to try something different. For us. For the marriage." I blinked. "Okay." I've been reading about open relationships, about how they help couples grow, rediscover themselves, reignite attraction. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were bright, not with guilt, but with excitement. I swallowed hard. "You're saying you want to see other people?" "I want us to see other people. Ethically. Transparently. Just explore. We've been together a long time, and I think we owe it to ourselves to make sure we're not limiting each other." The way she framed it, like it was some noble pursuit, a gift of freedom, made my stomach turn. "And you've already started thinking about who you want to explore with?" Her smile faltered for just a moment. "Not exactly. I mean, there are people I've talked to, but nothing's happened yet. I wanted to talk to you first." I nodded slowly, trying to keep my face neutral, trying not to show how fast my heart was beating. I was in a marriage, but somehow I felt like I was at a job interview I didn't even know I'd applied for. I told her I'd think about it. That night, I lay awake next to her, listening to the soft sound of her breathing. I stared at the ceiling and wondered when she stopped seeing me as enough. The next morning, I agreed. Not because I believed in it, not because I wanted to grow as individuals, but because I saw it in her eyes. She was going to do it whether I said yes or no. And I was afraid that saying no would only speed up the end. But something inside me broke. And once something breaks, it doesn't go back to what it was. It shifts. It cracks. It changes. So I smiled, kissed her forehead, and told her we could try it. But in my mind, I started keeping score. And waiting. The first rule was no jealousy. That was Brianna's opening line when she laid it all out on the table. We were sitting across from each other in the living room, a bottle of Pinot Noir between us, and her phone face down on the coffee table. The same phone she used to check so casually now seemed to burn a hole in the wood. "No jealousy," she repeated, like saying it twice would make it easier to swallow. "That means no guilt tripping, no pouting if one of us gets more attention, no interrogations." I nodded, trying to look calm, casual. "Right. Second," she went on, "no questions. We don't ask about names, details, or what happens unless it directly affects our health or safety. This isn't about replacing each other. It's about exploring. Exploring." God, the word was starting to sound like a euphemism for screwing strangers. "And third," she said, swirling her wine, "no emotional attachments. It's physical. It's not about falling in love. We're still each other's person." I stared at her. Her eyes were bright, alive. She hadn't looked this excited about anything involving our marriage in over a year. "So when does this start?" I asked. She laughed, light, almost playful. "Well, technically, we're in it now. I've already matched with someone. We're getting drinks Friday." That was 2 days away. She stood and came to me, kissed my forehead like I was a child, and whispered, "This is going to be good for us, Ethan. You'll see." I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice. Over the next few weeks, the transformation was rapid. New dresses, shorter hemlines, perfume that clung to her skin hours after she came home. Her texts got more frequent, but never when I was in the room. She'd go out smiling and come back with that faintly glazed look, as if whatever happened was something sacred, just for her. She never offered details. And per the rules, I never asked, but it didn't stop her from flaunting it. She'd hum while making coffee. She started working out more, wearing lingerie she hadn't touched in months. Once she came home, still wearing heels, and dropped her keys into the bowl on the counter with a little smirk on her lips. "Busy night?" I asked, pretending not to care. She looked at me over her shoulder. "You could say that." I smiled. "Glad you're enjoying your growth." We didn't fight. We didn't cry. We just drifted. She was so absorbed in this new freedom that she didn't notice how still I'd become, how carefully I watched. And then came the barbecue. Her parents hosted a family get-together. Burgers, beers, cousins chasing each other barefoot in the grass. I was playing the part of the supportive husband, polite and present, when I saw her. Kayla, Brianna's younger sister. 27, maybe 28 now. She looked different from how I remembered, still had that soft, mischievous energy, but it was refined now. She wore a sundress that clung to her curves just enough to be noticed, and when she saw me across the yard, her smile was real. She walked right up to me, hugged me like we were old friends, and said softly, "You look tired, Ethan. Everything okay?" That question hit harder than it should have, because no one else had bothered to ask. We talked, just casually, while Brianna flitted around the party like some exotic butterfly. Kayla stayed close. Her eyes flicked toward Brianna once or twice, her lips tight. Later, after most of the family had trickled out and the grill was cold, Kayla leaned against the porch railing next to me and said, "She treats you like an accessory." I looked at her. "You're not one," she added quickly. "You're more than that. I just hope you know it." Something about her voice, her honesty, it stayed with me. That night, Brianna didn't come home. She texted, "Staying at Kyle's. Don't wait up." I sat on the edge of the bed and stared into the dark. And for the first time since this whole thing began, I picked up my phone. I found Kayla's number, and I typed, "Thanks for checking in earlier. I really needed that." Her reply came faster than I expected. "Anytime, Ethan. I mean that." It started with a few casual texts. After the barbecue, I found myself thinking about Kayla more than I wanted to admit. At first, it was just gratitude. She'd been the only one to acknowledge the tension between Brianna and me. Hell, the only one who'd spoken to me like a human being rather than a set piece in Brianna's ever-growing theater of exploration. Our messages were light. Memes, random thoughts, harmless check-ins. "You survived the in-law invasion?" "Barely. Your mom still insists I eat more like I'm 12 and underfed." "Huh. She likes you. Means you're not totally hopeless." A week passed. Then two. Brianna came and went, her schedule more erratic, her presence colder. She was getting bolder, too, showing up late without apology, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Her kisses turned into air pecks, or worse, absent-minded pats on the shoulder. But Kayla? She was becoming my midnight bomb. A glass of bourbon, a half-lit room, and our texts buzzing softly between us. One night, around midnight, she messaged, "Can I ask you something real?" I stared at my phone. My thumb hovered before typing, "Sure. Go for it. Do you still love her?" I read the question twice, my stomach tightening. Then I replied, "I don't know. I love what we used to be. I don't know if I love who she's become." There was a pause. Then, "She doesn't deserve someone like you. You've always been good. You don't really know me." "I know enough. I watched her treat you like furniture for years. I always wondered how you stayed so patient." Sometimes patience is just another word for denial. She sent a sad emoji, followed by, "I'm not trying to be inappropriate. I just hate how she acts like your pain doesn't matter." That was the first night I let myself really look at Kayla differently. Not just as Brianna's younger sister, but as a woman, sharp, beautiful, and disarmingly sincere. Someone who saw me. The next day, she sent me a photo of a new plant she bought. "He's dying already. I suck at this. Try a little sunlight. Water helps too," I replied. "Oh, look at you. Ethan, plant whisperer." I smiled. I actually smiled. A few days later, she texted me while I was working late. "You hungry? I made too much pasta." I stared at that message longer than I should have. I didn't go, but I wanted to. God, I wanted to. Instead, I wrote, "Another night. But thank you." She responded with a heart emoji. Just one. I stared at it like it meant more than it should have. Brianna didn't come home again that night. I didn't ask where she was. I didn't care. The next weekend, I bumped into Kayla again, at the grocery store, of all places. She looked fresh in a sundress, with her hair tied loosely in a bun. I was holding a sad frozen pizza and a bottle of whiskey like the poster child for domestic neglect. She tilted her head. This is dinner? Don't judge me. I'm in survival mode. She laughed. Tell you what. Next time, I'll cook, and you bring wine. And stories. Deal. I hesitated. Then I said, deal. As I walked away with my sad bachelor meal, I realized something terrifying and electric all at once. I wasn't just angry at Brianna anymore. I was starting to feel alive again. And it wasn't because of her. It was supposed to be just drinks. That's what I kept telling myself as I pulled into the parking lot of the low-lit wine bar downtown. A quiet spot. Not her usual type of place. Too understated for Brianna. Too subtle to be one of her look-at-me venues. But it wasn't Brianna I was meeting. It was Kayla. She waved to me from a back corner booth tucked in, private. She wore jeans and a simple black blouse that hugged her shoulders in a way that was distracting. Her smile was easy, not like the strained pleasantries I'd gotten used to. This was real, warm. And when I slid into the seat across from her, something in me relaxed. Thought you'd bail, she said, lifting her glass of white wine. I almost did, I admitted. Then I remembered I had nothing better to do. Unless you count frozen pizza and bourbon. That's a sad combination. I smirked. You'd be surprised how well they pair. We talked. For hours. She asked about my work, about how I was holding up. She never once pushed for gossip or made it about Brianna. It was just two people sharing time, breathing the same air without expectation. Somewhere between the second and third glass of wine, I started to laugh again, really laugh. And when she laughed too, I noticed the way her lips curled, the way her eyes sparkled when she teased me. Do you remember, she said at one point, that time you fell asleep on the couch at Thanksgiving with a plate of stuffing on your chest? I was full of wine and bad decisions, I replied. She bit her lip. I thought it was cute. The conversation drifted, slow and warm, like the end of a perfect summer day. I forgot about Brianna. Forgot about the rules. About the cold bedroom I'd been sleeping in and the condescending silence I'd been living under. I just watched Kayla laugh and felt something inside me stir. Not anger. Not revenge. Desire. We left the bar around 11. The sidewalk was quiet, damp with late-night drizzle. Her car was parked behind mine, and for a long second we just stood there in the hush of the evening. Well, she said softly, this was good. Yeah, I replied, and it was all I could say because my heart was beating too loud for anything else. She stepped in, just a little. The space between us tightened. Her perfume was subtle, citrusy, and clean, and her eyes searched mine. I should go, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I nodded. I should have stepped back, said goodnight, but I didn't. Instead, I lifted my hand and brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. My fingers lingered. Kayla. I know, she whispered. It's wrong. And yet neither of us moved. She leaned in, just enough. The tension crackled. Her lips were close. I felt the warmth of her breath. I could taste the wine and unsaid words in the air between us. But I pulled away. Barely. I can't. Not yet. She swallowed. Nodded. I know. I wanted to know what it felt like. To be wanted. You are, I said. That's the problem. We stood like that, in the quiet fog of temptation, until we both stepped back. I'll see you, I said. Soon. Soon, she repeated, and got into her car. I sat in my car afterward, hands gripping the wheel, heart hammering in my chest. I hadn't crossed the line, but I'd seen over it, and I knew it was only a matter of time before I stepped across. It was just after midnight when I heard the moans. They weren't muffled. They weren't accidental. They were loud, deliberate, even. The kind of sounds you only make when you want someone to hear. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, muscles tight, hands balled into fists under the sheets. From the other side of the wall, Brianna giggled, breathless and high-pitched, followed by the rhythmic thud of our headboard knocking against drywall. Our bedroom used to be sacred. Now she had brought a stranger into it, again, and this time, she didn't care who knew. The man's voice was gruff, deep, not familiar. He was new. That was the point. They were all new. She liked variety. She called it experience. I called it something else. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. I didn't storm into the room or throw punches. I just lay there, stone cold and silent, letting the reality of it all settle around me like smoke in a closed room. This was the game she wanted. This was what growth looked like to her. Fine. 2 days later, I booked the cabin. It was nestled deep in the hills just outside the city, a 2-bedroom spot with no cell service, a fireplace, and a trail that ran alongside a narrow river. It was rustic but charming, Kayla's kind of vibe. She didn't ask questions when I sent her the link. A hike, she texted. That's your idea of a weekend escape? You'll like it, I replied. Trust me. She met me outside the cabin on a Friday afternoon. Her jeans were tucked into hiking boots, her flannel shirt tied at the waist. When she smiled, something lit up in me I hadn't felt in a long, long time. We spent the afternoon exploring the trails. It was quiet, peaceful. Every now and then, she'd reach for my arm when the path dipped or got slippery, and each touch sent a jolt through me. She noticed, too. I saw it in the way her fingers lingered. Her glances held a second too long. That night, the rain came. It started slow, just a soft patter on the cabin roof, but by 9, it was a full-blown storm. We sat on the floor near the fireplace, a bottle of red between us, a blanket draped loosely across both our legs. Thanks for this, she said, her voice hushed. I needed it more than I realized. Me too. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was searching for something buried just under my skin. I think about you, Ethan, she said. More than I should. I set my glass down. I think about you too. We didn't move right away. The fire popped beside us, casting golden light across her cheekbones. Her hair was damp from the earlier hike, a few strands clinging to her neck. She leaned in, slow, hesitant. I didn't stop her. Our lips met, soft at first, tentative. But then something snapped. A need that had been simmering for weeks boiled over. I pulled her into my lap, her fingers knotting in my shirt as we kissed again, deeper, hungrier. There was nothing polite about it. No rules. No guilt. Her mouth tasted like wine and rain and quiet rebellion. My hands traced the curve of her back, and when I whispered her name, she gasped like it was the only sound she wanted to hear. We moved to the couch. Clothes came off slowly, reverently. I memorized the slope of her hips, the softness of her skin, the way she arched into my touch like she'd been waiting for it her whole life. When we finally came together, it wasn't just sex. It was something else, an unspoken answer to a question we'd both been too afraid to ask. Afterward, we lay tangled on the couch, the fire burning low, our bodies slick with sweat and silence. I shouldn't feel this good, she whispered. But you do. She nodded, eyes glistening. So do you. I kissed her again, slower this time. Brianna's game had started this. But I was playing now. And I wasn't playing to lose. The drive back from the cabin was quiet. Not awkward, just thoughtful. Kayla kept glancing out the window, her fingers occasionally brushing against mine on the center console. We didn't need to talk. Everything that needed to be said had been written in the way she moaned my name, in the way her nails dug into my back, in the way she whispered stay when I started to get up to stoke the fire. We had crossed the line, and neither of us wanted to go back. That night at the cabin changed everything. I didn't just sleep with my wife's sister. I made love to a woman who looked at me like I mattered. A woman who touched me like I was something worth craving, not tolerating. And now, as we returned to our separate lives, I could feel the weight of it all pressing down on me, but not with regret. Just gravity. When I got home, Brianna was in the kitchen, sipping green juice like she'd just returned from yoga. Have fun hiking? She asked, without looking up from her phone. Yeah, I said, setting my bag down. Kayla seems peppy lately, she added, tilting her head with a smirk. Whatever you two talked about up there, good on you. She thought she was still in control. She had no idea, and I didn't correct her. In the following days, something shifted in me. I wasn't angry anymore, not the way I had been. Brianna's antics, her lovers, her endless justifications, they didn't cut me as deep now. Because Kayla had shown me something different. Real, intimate, earned. And yet, we agreed to keep things quiet. Kayla and I didn't speak of the cabin. We returned to texts, but they were different now. More careful, less reckless. But the undercurrent was still there. Every time I saw her name flash on my screen, my chest tightened. Every time we bumped into each other, at family dinners, weekend gatherings, or in the rare moments Brianna thought it was cute to invite me along, our eyes would lock just a second too long. One afternoon, Kayla sent me a photo of her coffee mug. It's not wine by a fire, but I'm pretending it is. I replied with a picture of a pine tree. Close enough. Then she sent, I think about it. All the time. I stared at the screen. Then typed, me too. We didn't need to say more. Meanwhile, Brianna kept spiraling deeper into her new life. She brought men home now without shame. One of them walked past me shirtless on a Saturday morning. Another one made himself coffee in the mug I gave her on our 3rd anniversary. Don't look at me like that, Brianna said casually. We agreed. No jealousy, remember? I'm not jealous, I replied. I'm just amazed. By what? How easily you confuse attention with intimacy. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. She thought she was untouchable, unchecked, free. But I had found my own freedom. With Kayla, it wasn't about escaping. It was about connecting. Every stolen moment, every brush of her hand, felt more honest than anything Brianna and I had shared in years. I started imagining a future with her, not in a reckless way, in a quiet, terrifying, beautiful way. What would it be like to wake up next to someone who actually wanted me there? To build something again, not out of revenge, but out of real, mutual desire? That terrified me, because it meant this wasn't just an affair. It was a choice, one I couldn't unmake. There was no turning back. It was just a photo. One single, stupid photo. Kayla had posted it to her Instagram story. Harmless, really. A group shot from a weekend picnic with the family. Everyone laughing, drinks in hand, the sun setting behind us in that soft, golden hue that makes anything look innocent. I was standing off to the side, bottle of beer in one hand, a smirk caught mid-expression. But her hand, Kayla's hand, was on my chest. Barely noticeable to anyone not looking for it. But Brianna was always looking. I didn't see the fallout coming until that night. Brianna was waiting for me when I got home. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood in the doorway of the kitchen, arms crossed, jaws set. Her phone was in her hand, the screen still lit. Is there something you want to tell me? She asked, her voice deceptively calm. I dropped my keys on the counter. Like what? She turned the phone around. The photo. You look cozy, she said. I kept my expression neutral. It's a picture. From a picnic. We were standing close. Her eyes narrowed. You don't touch people like that unless there's something. I said nothing. She stepped closer, the tension coiling in the space between us. Tell me you haven't been fucking my sister. That word. The one she'd never used about her own flings. For all her sexcapades, Brianna always cloaked them in euphemisms. Exploration. Connection. Growth. But now that the tables turned, suddenly it was fucking. I exhaled slowly. Are we really doing this? You and I? Talking about betrayal? She flinched. Just a little. I asked for honesty, she hissed. That was the deal. No. You asked for silence. No questions, no attachments, remember? Those were your rules. Her mouth opened, then closed again. And for the first time in months, I saw her falter. You don't get to be the victim here, Brianna. You opened the door. You walked through it. You left it wide open behind you. She looked at me like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't either. You're sleeping with Kayla, she said quietly. I didn't answer. She turned, stormed upstairs, and slammed the bedroom door behind her. That night, she slept alone. For the first time in our marriage, she reached for me and found nothing. And I lay on the couch downstairs, staring at the ceiling, not with guilt, but with clarity. This was no longer a game. It had become something else entirely. Brianna's birthday was always a production. For as long as I'd known her, she treated it like royalty treated coronations, meticulously planned, high on spectacle, dripping in ego. This year was no different. She rented a private loft downtown with skyline views, custom cocktails, a playlist curated by some wannabe DJ friend, and a guest list full of people who loved the sound of their own voices as much as she did. And this year, she invited all her flings. That wasn't speculation, it was obvious. There was Kyle, smug and slouched in a leather jacket in the corner, Dante, the tantric specialist she swore was just a friend, and two others I recognized only because I'd seen their cars in our driveway when I pretended to be out of town. The text invite came a week prior. Would love for you to come. +1 welcome. Let's show everyone how progressive we are. Progressive. Right. I stared at that message for a full hour. Then I RSVP'd. +1. And then I called Kayla. This is your idea of revenge? She asked, her voice cautious but intrigued. No, I said. This is my move. The night of the party, I wore the suit she always liked, the one that made her say I looked like someone off a GQ cover. Haven't worn it in over a year. Had to dust it off. But it still fit. Maybe even better than before. Kayla met me at my place. She stepped out of the car in a burgundy silk dress that clung in all the right places. Her lips were painted a deep red, and her eyes carried that same sharp softness that first hooked me. You sure about this? She asked. I've never been more sure. We walked into the party hand in hand. In the room, stopped. Gasps. Whispers. A few not-so-subtle glances between Brianna and her admirers. But no one said a word at first. The silence was louder than the music. Brianna was standing near the bar, wearing a designer black jumpsuit that cost more than most people's rent. She was laughing at something Kyle said until she saw us. Her mouth froze in mid-smile. Her hand, still holding her drink, dropped just slightly. Kayla squeezed my hand. "Hey, birthday girl," I said smoothly as we approached. Brianna blinked. "Wow, you really brought my sister." Kayla tilted her head. "+1, right?" I assumed that applied to family too. Brianna looked around, as if searching for support. But no one spoke. "Are you serious right now?" she asked me, voice rising. "You said you wanted freedom," I said, calmly. "So did I. Only difference? I found something real in mine." Her eyes darkened. "You think this is going to hurt me?" She spat. "Dragging her here, parading around like some kind of twisted power couple?" "No," I said. "This isn't about you anymore." She laughed, but it was hollow. "You're pathetic, Ethan." Kayla didn't flinch. She reached for another drink and said sweetly, "You know what's pathetic? Thinking you can have your cake and sleep with it too." Brianna's eyes snapped to her. "I never expected you to become her," Brianna hissed. "And I never expected you to become this," Kayla replied, lifting her glass in a mock toast. "Happy birthday, sis." We left not long after that. But the impression was made. The whispers started the moment we walked out. And when I held Kayla's hand as we stepped into the night air, I knew something had shifted permanently. I wasn't the accessory anymore. I was the headline. The texts started pouring in before we even got home. From friends. From family. From Brianna. Most were variations of the same shocked sentiment. "Is this real? You and Kayla? What the hell happened last night?" But Brianna's messages were the loudest. "You embarrassed me. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You've always been petty, but this is low, Ethan. Even for you." I didn't respond. Not right away. I sat on the edge of my bed with Kayla beside me, her fingers resting gently on my thigh, both of us silently letting the evening's aftermath settle in. The apartment felt different. Lighter. Like a storm had passed and left us standing, drenched but intact. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Yeah, you." Kayla let out a breathy laugh. "Not really, but I don't regret it." Neither did I. The next day, Brianna showed up unannounced. She let herself in with the spare key I'd forgotten she still had, barging through the front door like a hurricane in heels. I was at the kitchen counter, nursing a coffee, trying to keep my pulse steady. She didn't say hello. "You really had to rub it in my face, didn't you?" I set my mug down. "You invited me. I just brought someone who makes me happy." Her jaw clenched. "She's my sister. She's also a grown woman who gets to make her own decisions." She threw her hands in the air. "You're disgusting." I stared at her, really stared. The woman in front of me was a far cry from the Brianna I'd fallen in love with. Gone was the charm, the softness, the spark. What stood in her place was bitterness masked as strength, fear dressed as control. "You know what's funny?" I said quietly. "You wanted an open marriage so you could find yourself. But the only thing I found was how little you valued what we had." "That's not true." "It is. You wanted to keep me in your back pocket while you played dress-up with every fantasy that swiped right on you. You didn't want honesty. You wanted immunity." Her mouth opened, but I didn't let her speak. "I followed your rules, Brianna. Every single one. I didn't ask questions. I didn't get jealous. I kept my distance while you brought strangers into our home and moaned loud enough for me to hear it down the hall." She blinked. "I didn't cheat," I continued. "I didn't sneak. I didn't lie. I waited. I endured. And when I finally found someone who looked at me like I was worth something, really worth something, I didn't flinch." She took a step back, as if my words physically struck her. "You wanted freedom. So did I. Only difference." I paused. "I found love in mine." Her eyes welled. "With Kayla." "Yes." The room went still. Brianna turned, like she might say something else, but then thought better of it. She left without another word, the door clicking shut behind her like the final period on a sentence that had dragged on too long. I stood there, breathing hard, heart pounding. Kayla appeared moments later, her hair damp from the shower, wrapped in one of my t-shirts. She looked at me, eyes searching. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "I am now." She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. We stood like that for a long time, quiet, whole. The storm had passed, and for the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for the next one. 6 months later, I was standing on a sunlit porch, coffee in hand, watching Kayla hum to herself as she watered the potted plants along the railing. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, loose strands catching the morning light, and she was barefoot, wearing one of my old t-shirts that hung off her shoulder like it belonged to her. Because now it did. We'd moved into a quiet place just outside the city. Nothing flashy. Just clean walls, wide windows, and space to breathe. Space to grow. The kind of place you move to when you're done pretending you're fine in a life that was slowly suffocating you. Brianna and I finalized the divorce 2 months ago. There were no dramatic court scenes. No long-winded speeches. By then, we were both too tired to fight. She didn't say much during mediation, and I didn't expect her to. She left with the condo, her name still glowing in social circles that would forget my name the moment I was no longer convenient. That was fine. Let them have her. I had already walked away. Kayla was hesitant at first, not because of what we were, but because of what people would say. About the optics. About the family tension. But that melted the first time she watched me read on the couch with my head in her lap, and I felt her brush my hair back and whisper, "You make me feel safe." Safe. That was the word. With Brianna, I was always performing. Trying to be the right kind of man. The one she could parade at dinner parties, the one who didn't question, didn't need too much, didn't ask for affection because God forbid she be emotionally generous. With Kayla, I just was. We went slow. Kept things quiet. Let the dust settle. Her parents found out a month ago. Her mom called it disappointing, like she'd just missed a flight. Her dad didn't say much, but he pulled me aside when they left the house one evening. "She's smiling again," he said. "That's all I care about. Brianna hasn't reached out since the day she left my apartment. I hear things through mutual acquaintances that she's still exploring, still performing freedom like it's a brand partnership. Maybe she's happy. Maybe she's just stubborn. Doesn't matter anymore. She made her choice. And so did I." One night, Kayla and I were lying in bed, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing lazy circles across her shoulder. "Do you ever think about how this all started?" she asked. "Every day," I said. "But not the way you think." "What do you mean?" "I used to think it was a tragedy, that what Brianna did broke me. But now, I think it just pushed me where I needed to go." She looked up at me, her eyes soft. "Do you regret it?" "Not a single second. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the people who tear you down are the very ones who guide you towards something better. Something truer. Brianna thought she was choosing freedom. But I found it. In someone who saw my worth. In someone who stayed when the smoke cleared. In someone who never needed rules to love me right. Kayla wasn't a rebound. She was the first choice I ever made for myself. And every morning I wake up beside her, I know I chose right.